Coming up on Oakdale Update, we'll take a look back at 2018 with our Mayor, Paul Reinke, and we'll tell you about some upcoming events. Stay tuned, Oakdale Update is straight ahead. Hello and welcome to Oakdale Update. I'm your host, Frank Arcello. This is the City of Oakdale's news and information program about your community. 2018 has been an exciting and busy year in the City of Oakdale. With me to talk about the past years are Mayor Paul Reinke. Mr. Mayor, thank you for joining us on Oakdale Update.
Well, thank you, Frank. It sure is nice to be here.
It is, and we were just talking before. It seems like it was just yesterday, and here was a whole year ago you were here.
That's right.
Time flies, huh?
That's right.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about, tell me a little bit about yourself. I always like to do that for our new viewers.
Well, thank you. Carol and I have been in Oakdale for, pushing 23 years. Our son is just turned 27, a graduate from Augsburg College, working here in the Twin Cities. Carol and I have been married for 33 years, so we're longtime residents of the East Side, and I work in the professional development side, the commercial real estate industry, and that and the political world, the municipality world, gives me a great life. I'm really lucky. I'm really fortunate.
Your background is very inducive, isn't it, for work, being a mayor and being involved in what's going on in our community, correct?
You know, it is, and I underestimate that until I'm with a bunch of people in the, say, the League of Minnesota Cities. We just had some training. And I was with some other mayors who have different backgrounds, say insurance or financial advising, both critical aspects. But when I start talking about the real estate side and what I've been able to do professionally, they talk about how much they wish they had somebody on staff that had that experience, or even themselves having a little bit more experience in that arena. Because so much of our work in the city deals with the physical infrastructure and that fixed assets. So I'm very lucky.
And we're going to talk a little later about that Imation property up at the north end, Oakdale, which is kind of down your alley, up your alley, right?
Right.
Okay. All right, let's talk about a couple of things about the highlights for 2018. Let's start with the administrative services. In the finance department, we've got a Moody's rating, which is very good. What is it?
Yeah. Well, Moody's is a nationally known rating bureau that evaluates private companies, public companies, and municipality credit worthiness in their financial health. So we are just ecstatic that we maintain that AA2 rating.
A what rate? I'm sorry.
It's a technicality, but it's called the AA2 rating. Now, what that rating does is it assures that we can borrow for the least amount of cost. You know, again, much of the stuff that cities do is minutia and not that attractive to the typical resident or typical business owner. But because we are able to keep our house in good order financially, the Moody's folks came in, acknowledged that the finances were good, gave us this superior rating, and now that allows us to borrow money at a much more competitive rate. Borrowing money at a less rate means less cost to the residents.
Do they physically come in and do the books, look at the books, or how do they do this?
They really do. They don't do an extensive, exhaustive analysis because our auditors, Redpath, does that annually. But they do come in and talk with our department heads and our Department of Finance people, and then evaluate the books and make recommendations.
Okay. So now in the buildings department, building inspections department, we issued 2,786 permits.
Right.
Now that'd be for what? For buildings and for houses, or what is that for?
Well,
the permits?
It's for everything. Now, just imagine that, almost 3,000 permits coming out of our small department. Bill Schmidt is our building inspector and runs a great department. His staff of three principal people and several other people on an assistant side take care of all these building information requests and issuing the permits and following up to inspect them to ensure that it was done properly.
So that could be somebody get an inspection to
could be a fence,
in or anything.
could be a remodel, could be a $3 million commercial building, Twin Cities Hardware. Major expansion just on the south side.
I see that.
That is part of Bill Schmidt's world in making sure that that's done properly.
Okay, so I want to ask you about rental licenses. There were 750 issued. I remember on the EDC commission we were talking about when we started getting those people to have licenses to rent. Talk about a little bit about that, would you?
Well, the crux or the genesis of the issue that led us to this licensing program was somewhat around people taking an existing space, maybe a garage, and turning that into a rental unit. At the end of the day, they're high integrity situations, not really an issue, except it's weird. But many times people try to do it as least costly as they can, and sometimes that causes problems. So doing a quick research, the city staff and EDC came up with the idea to mirror what other communities have done and start the program for rental licensing. So rental licensing actually means one of our inspectors going to the premise, be it a house or a three-story building, an apartment building, to do an inspection of the units. It's so critical that this happens because of the fire life safety aspects.
Sure.
I dread the time when I read about somebody getting hurt, or if there's a fire or something disastrous in a rental place, and it was done because something wasn't done properly.
Sure.
So we're not going to allow that.
There's a prime example, I believe it was San Francisco last year or the year before. They took a building and the owners made a rental property out of it, and it wasn't. And nothing was, I don't know, fire in there, 20, 30 people died in that thing. Right. Horrible way to go too, I might add. But no, it's a good thing. Okay, and the inspections now, we had about 3,000 inspections. Yep. Now what would that be? Inspections
could be the follow-up to the permit process. So the inspections are just being sure that the plans and documents that were approved are actually built according to the plans. So it's a final inspection that allow, they call it a certificate of occupancy, to be granted to allow people to use the space that they have built out.
Now who's doing the inspections? If I remember correctly, for the rental, I think it was the fire department where the fire inspectors were doing the inspection.
Which leads to the great aspect of one of the great aspects of our city is that each department just doesn't do their own thing. Yeah. The building department, the recreation department, the police department. We have a cross collaboration. So to have the fire department doing the ongoing building inspections or premise inspections to be sure that, like the fire exit, if that's blocked with store product or inventory, they're going to comment and make a request that that stuff get moved, so that if there's an emergency situation, people can exit that building properly, quickly, and safely. So we do have a lot of cross collaboration between the departments.
I know there was some pushback when we were talking about that on the EDC about having these rental licenses, but I think in the grand scheme of things, it was a smart thing to do, correct?
Yes. And that pushback is, it's unfortunate. We have 80% of our landlords or people who rent space, kind of the 80-20 rule. 80% of them are phenomenal, go to the extra effort to make sure that their property is well kept, that they treat the tenant well, and everything is fine.
Sure.
There might be 20% though that aren't quite as diligent. And again, if people get hurt or things aren't done properly in those facilities, that's a significant problem.
Yeah.
So we came up with that program. We try to price it reasonably so that we're not penalizing anybody. And what we do is we price it to take care of the cost reimbursement of that inspector's time.
Yep. I think it was the permits itself cost the landlord's money, and I think that was the pushback for mostly. Right. And to be expected, I guess. Right. Okay, so let's talk about community development, which is huge in Oakdale. The top projects, let's talk about the small area plans for the 3M property. Now, that is going to be huge in the next year or two. So just give us a rundown on the small area plans. What does that mean?
So the small area plan, first the area that we're talking about that we did this planning process with the developer who owns that property is just the 200 acres immediately north of the old Emation campus, now the Slumberland headquarters. So there's really 206 acres to the north of that property that was sold. The owner was 3M Foundation. Developer, Maplewood Development, purchased it and has been working with us the last year on doing this small area plan. You know, if you think about the traditional St. Paul or Minneapolis old neighborhoods, you know, there's the rectangular grids, streets, tons of houses, sometimes not sidewalks, sometimes not open space, sometimes not parks. And we decided, no, that's not what we want for our community in this very precious, very beautiful acreage. So with 3M Foundation and making sure that they were aware, and the Maplewood Development Company, we initiated this planning process. The planning process is done, and we've got some final details that we're working through with the developer. What's going to end up happening is that over really the next decade, once the ground is prepared, roads are put in, and the infrastructure is installed, over the next 10 years, there'll be the construction of the homes. There might be 350 homes, beautiful homes that could be the middle to upper middle price points. There's going to be some on the middle to slightly lower middle price points, and then there's going to be a significant number of apartment units or multifamily dwellings on the south side and on the west side towards the freeway. It's going to be very cool.
Oh yeah, you know, the good thing about this is the first time in, I don't know, 100 years probably, Oakdale has had a chance to develop a chunk of property that was virgin, right?
Right. And you think Oakdale's, you know, we're very, very fortunate, but this is the largest single multifamily housing and single-family housing development in the Twin Cities.
That's unbelievable. That is so good.
It's going to be beautiful.
It is going to be great. But we have a chance to start from scratch. You know, Woodbury's been blessed with dealing with farmland for years and years, so they could put it in the way they wanted to. That's right. Okay, let's talk about the Helmond Greenway Station, and that's for the BRT, correct?
Right.
Okay.
So the BRT is an acronym for the Bus Rapid Transit. The Bus Rapid Transit is part of the mass transit system throughout the Twin Cities. In our case, it's a specialized transit system using buses in its dedicated guideway, not part of the street, not part of the freeway, but its own dedicated guideway to transfer people or transit people east and west primarily. And so we'll be coming from, the line will be coming from the downtown Union Depot station, heading east, generally following Highway 94, Freeway 94, and then coming up to Helmo, heading south, taking a right. There'll be a new bridge over 94, and eventually the line is going to terminate in Woodbury down by the theaters. Now the two stations are, again, very fortunate for Oakdale because I think we're the only city that has two stations along this line. The Greenway station is down by the our neighboring city Landfall, and will play a large role in helping people of limited means have access to the whole Twin Cities. And then the fourth in the Helmo station will be another spot where there's going to be significant development. The fourth and Helmo spot is very cool because of the retail, housing, commercial development that's going to take place around that.
You know, okay, I'm on the EDC Commission again, and Bob Streeter, our Community Development Director, gave us a rundown of what's going on, what it's going to be like. The question I have, and I'm going to ask you because I know you've been very involved in this for years now, right?
Right.
Okay, so I live at the north end of Oakdale, and I want to come down the south end there and go on a bus to downtown or whatever. Where do I park?
Yeah, it depends on where you get on the bus. If you get on the bus system at the Helmo and 4th Street, there is going to be a surface lot of roughly 106 to 150 stalls. Okay. That's part of the design, part of the plan.
It is.
And that's right adjacent to the station and the retail that's contemplated for that area.
Okay.
So you can park there. If you want to get on at the South Point, at the terminus in Woodbury, there's another structured parking ramp that's part of the building program for the line at that location.
Okay.
If you want to get on at over by White Bear in 94, where the line is going to go through. There's another surface lot and an existing surface lot through the MTC that they own that is going to be transformed into parking for the station for the BRT.
Okay. Because I was a little concerned about that. I mean, if you go down and you're going to park on somebody's front yard or their street, I should say, but that's good. So you thought about that. That's pretty important, isn't it?
It is really important, and if I can, some of the neighbors, while we were talking about the plan for the 4th and Helmo BRT station, there were several neighbors, quite a few neighbors that were had serious problems with the idea of a bus coming through, and one of the positives about this is that it's going to be very frequent. During prime times, rush hour, it's going to be every 10 to 15 minutes a bus coming through. A little bit less during the midday quiet times, but then again very frequent in the afternoon rush hour. So they were concerned about all this noise or traffic and pollution. Their input and their concerns were expressed very eloquently, and heated sometimes. We got into it talking about what's necessary for the region and the city and what's necessary for the neighborhood. The outcome of those discussions is an improved site. We did move the line slightly south. We improved the landscaping protections for privacy and the visuals, and the sound again is pushed away. So that's a kind of a side way of saying that an encouragement for the residents of Oakdale and every community to get involved. Just don't sit back and complain or comment to your neighbor over coffee. Come down, talk to us, and make that concern known.
This is good. I was going to come down and talk to you about the parking, because I just didn't see any. I don't remember being a parking lot there, but it's just like the bus, the rapid transit over Garden Angels. That parking lot is packed. Packed every day. Is packed. So if the bus route is anything like that, it's going to be. But listen, we're going to move on
really quickly too. Just a bus. It's not just a bus. So we wanted to have the light rail come out this way, but that's foolish. The cost is twice as much. It's extravagant. It's just unaffordable. But the vehicle itself is going to be, I call it light rail transit light. So the vehicle is not just a typical MTC bus, but it's going to be an upgraded version of the bus to mimic the light rail vehicle. Okay,
good deal. All right, now we got to move on. We're just getting tied up here. Okay, now you did complete the comprehensive plan up to the year 2040.
Right.
Now, just give us a quick rundown, and that's a lot of years there. Give us a quick rundown of what you came up with.
The overall in that, Frank, is that as we look at the community, the built-out spots, the places that are going to be built out, and the infrastructure. So it's streets, roads, bridges, sewer, water, parks, existing homes, single-family homes, multifamily, commercial, industrial. That whole, the whole pot is looked at, and we made decisions with significant input from community groups, both commission and residents, to say how do we want to proceed in the future. So we have a guide. That's all it is.
Sure.
It's not cast in stone, and it can be changed, but it sure is a good guide that many, many people contributed to.
At least you know where you're headed for, just so, because you're going to be long gone by then, so we have to, the people down the road have to know what you were talking about, what you're thinking about, but you planned. Okay, let's go to some of the different departments. Let's start with the fire department. They've come up with a computer-aided dispatch, CAD.
Right.
Now, what exactly is that?
Simplest way to think about that is it's a much, much more efficient, streamlined way of communicating the call to our volunteer and to our full-time people, employees.
Okay.
Just simple as that.
Just affects just our Oakdale Fire Department?
We're plugged in, I believe, with the county-wide system.
Okay. Yep.
All the departments haven't quite plugged into the system like we have, but it's just an enhanced way of communicating, accurate communications too.
So in other words, the mutual aid would go to North St. Paul Fire too, and they'd be able to help us if we needed it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just another modern thing. Okay, the other thing is we've got 4 new full-time firefighters, is that correct?
It is correct, and it's very pleasing and very glad that happened. There's a cost to it, of course, but when we thought and reviewed our coverage times, and Chief Anderson and Chief Wold, or Deputy Chief Wold, were very instrumental in showing the council what the coverage statistics were, coverage being people available to respond to calls. Our call rate is significant, and it's not so much fire, but it's health-related or other related activities. And when we evaluated, we could not go down the path without having, we decided we couldn't go down that path without having better coverage, and we can only have that through full-time people. Yeah. So now we have full.
Now this is getting to be pretty much county-wide, statewide, nationwide too. The volunteer fire department is getting to be a thing of the past, isn't it?
It is. It is. And Chief Anderson again and Deputy Chief Old are struggling with that. They're talking with other communities about improvements. There are a number of techniques that can be used to help people who choose to be volunteer firefighters and EMTs to still have a very comfortable life and a family-friendly life, but their dedication and their service to the community is also a high priority, and sometimes that conflicts.
Sure.
Then you throw in the job situation, and many people aren't working in Oakdale. So we are all looking at that situation, and we will continue moving towards a very good solution again. So the minimum basis is that people who have a need get responded to quickly and productively.
It's I can remember years ago, of course, when you'd be in Menards and all of a sudden a beeper would go off and these guys would be flying out of that store. Right. You don't see that anymore because they just aren't there, are they?
Correct.
I mean, they work in Bloomington or Richfield or whatever.
Things change, and they're not in the city as much, and hence the notion of paid on call with dedicated shifts.
Sure.
Additional volunteer, additional attraction to people who want to contribute.
Sure.
In making it easy for people to contribute and learn the skills such that when they do respond, they can be very professional about it.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on there, we got another thing is a completed countywide records management system. Now, can you briefly tell us what that's all about?
You know, it's one of those, I'm going to call it minutia, but it's a very important aspect of our involvement with the county. And when you think about the data that gets collected, we wanted to participate, and we have now participated, completed that process of engaging fully into the countywide records management system. I'll let it go at that because it's just at accuracy of the data and being able to retrieve and contribute data when we want to very quickly, efficiently makes sense. Information
world we're in, isn't it?
It is.
As it should be, and this is very good. Okay, so one of the things coming up in the for Oakdale here, we're going to expand the police department building, not the police, I don't think, the personnel, but the building itself, correct?
We are. The building expansion that's contemplated and moving down the path is really the garage area and significant internal remodeling of the existing offices. Right now, the locker room situation is inappropriate for male and female officers, and we need to improve that so that we have equity there. When you think about wintertime, right now we don't have covered protection for the squad cars. 6 inches of snow, shift change, or 2 o'clock in the morning there's a call, a serious call. They're out there, scraping their car before they can safely go and respond.
And the other thing, I interviewed Bill Sullivan, the chief of police, last month, 2 months ago, and one of the other reasons he said we need this garage, is because of the equipment inside the cars now, the computers and all that. They can't stand the cold weather.
It's the equipment. I also think it's a recruiting retainage tool.
Sure.
That the opportunities for police officers are great here and other communities. We have such good officers and professional officers. I want to keep them here and have them be happy with their careers. Yep. And this is one aspect of enhancing that. And also, when there is change, we have I think a higher likelihood of recruiting. That is definitely not the reason we're doing this.
No, I understand.
But it's a side benefit that will happen because of the building.
Crappy locker room, and then you have to clean the cars before you can go on.
Well, and then the evidence room and the ammunition and all the security and the interview and the detectives and one simple thing is if my family has a problem and they're going to go talk to one of the detectives.
Sure.
It's nice to have it be a private interaction and a conversation and not overheard by other people. Absolutely. At the end of this remodeling project, that is one attribute that will happen. that'll be much more private, much more conducive to good conversations.
As it should be. This is a good one. Okay, we're running low on time here, so we're going to have to be kind of quick on this. So what's up? Give me a rundown on what's up for 2019, 2020. Yeah, first of all, let's start with the 3M development project. We already talked about that, so you can just brush on that real quick.
And that's what we talked about, this 3M study. So
Sure.
it's at 200 acres north of the new Slumberland headquarters. Next year, the developer wants to start moving dirt. The process itself...
Next year as in 20...
Next year...
spring 19?
Spring 19.
Okay.
The process itself will take a considerable amount of time, and it's really a 10-year project for the construction of the homes.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, people are thinking it might be happening over 2 years.
Sure.
No, it takes time. There will be eventually roughly 1,100 to 1,400 units of housing on that development, and that just takes time. But that's exciting.
Absolutely. And then the two other big things is the Highway 36 Hadley Avenue interchange. How's that? What's that going to be?
It's
like?
going well, and what that is a new bridge over 36, which is the Hadley Bridge. Currently, there's lights there right by Fleet Farm. The semaphores are going to be removed, a new bridge put over. We're going to be unique that there'll be 3 roundabouts to facilitate easy travel to the eastbound lane of 36.
I hope
it
is. I'm not.
And westbound 36, while we're still moving traffic.
Oh gosh.
It'll be a little bit of an adjustment. People will like it.
I'm sure you went through the highway department, DOT, and everybody in the world thinks this is the right thing to do, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is why we're doing it.
Okay.
And it still allows us access to eastbound 36, south 694, and westbound 36.
Okay. I'm a little nervous on that one because I'm getting old and it's hard for me to drive these days, but I'm going to go with
So
it.
that's a 2-year project,
Yes.
Frank, starting next spring,
Yes.
2019, and then finishing up within 2 years.
Okay, I hope you guys got it all right. We'll see. Okay, the other big thing is the 94, 694, 494 interchange, which is just a headache from the word go.
When that 694 backs up, starting at 2 o'clock sometimes, 3 o'clock in the afternoon during the week, we know that there's significant problems. There was money allocated through the legislature to improve that starting next year. What that means is that there's going to be an additional acceleration lane, deceleration lane on the west side of 694 so that people accessing going south can have more of a dedicated lane. Plus, there's going to be another acceleration lane so that people coming in and heading south on 694 can speed up and merge more efficiently.
Yes.
The through lane too, that's the bugaboo. You know, people just get so irritated.
Yeah.
The through lane is going to be on the left-hand side, and that's going to be improved also.
Oh, great. That it is so, it's so needed. Okay, we are out of time, big time, but is there any message you want to give to our audience?
You bet. From the city itself, from the whole city and staff, we wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays, and a very safe and happy holidays especially.
Okay, and I want to thank you, and so far you're just doing a wonderful job as mayor. You seem like you know what you're doing, and I think we're going to be in good hands for the next 4 years.
Yes, and we know what we're doing.
Exactly.
Great council, great staff, we know what we're doing.
We have always been so blessed having good people up at our city hall, correct?
That's right.
And you get to work with them.
That's right.
You lucky man, you.
I am.
Okay, Paul, thank you so much, and good luck to you in the next 4 years.
Very good. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. That's all we have time for on this month's Oakdale Update. For everyone at the City of Oakdale, thanks for watching.